Hi, folks, and welcome to Original Firefighter. Original Firefighter is a lifestyle brand inspired by the American Fire Service. From gear for your off days to this podcast, we celebrate the fire service loud and proud every day. Remember, for every purchase you make at Original Firefighter, we give back 5% through our 5-Alarm Give Back program, supporting mental health and wellness for all firefighters. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and be sure to check out originalfirefighter.com today. Let's get into the show. So, folks, welcome to the show today. I have a very special segment for this broadcast. I welcome you to the Original Firefighter Podcast show. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different from maybe some of our previous. Obviously, here at Original Firefighter, we want to have fun. We're going to laugh a lot. We're going to try to crack each other up. And if we have a guest in the studio with us, we make it all that more entertaining. But I do want to make sure that we point out today's episode. We are going to get into some mental health conversation, wellness conversation for firefighters. And just a forewarning, we will discuss a little bit of some of the unfortunate trends in the fire service that have happened, which include everything from, say, line of duty deaths to suicide. And so just a point that if we start to become a little bit more serious than we typically do here, there's good cause and reason for that. But everything's for awareness, everything's for the betterment of firefighters and the fire service as a whole. And we just want to make sure that we're taking care of each other. And that's why today, my special guest is Rebecca Tayo. Rebecca Tayo.
Well, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I mean, any opportunity to talk about firefighter mental health and awareness for, our first responders, not just, the firefighters, as you know, like telecommunicators, people working our dispatch programs. And so fire and EMS, it's a great opportunity. And I think, I can't talk enough about it. So it's a good cause.
I know. It's strange how I think you and I are both alike that way, where we want to express, I don't know, how we feel about the love of the fire service, but then also the concern.
Right.
And like they kind of just sort of end up going hand in hand. And I think it's coming more and more to the surface where obviously I still, I don't have a problem talking about how I think the fire service should be still very bold, and, there are good reason and times that you take certain risks, certain chances. Don't back down. We firefighters, if you want to get something done, you put a bunch of firefighters together, they'll get it done.
Right.
But there is a conversation I think it's beyond starting to happen. It's already happened. I mean, we're having it. And that is the cost, the concern of firefighters and their mental health and wellness.
Right.
And so before we get into that, I mean, we're going to get into quite a bit of that on this episode. Sorry if my voice gets a little raspy.
I mean, it's early, so.
It is a little or a little bit early, isn't it? But no, I just want to just quickly touch on the fact that you are a lieutenant with the Rockford Fire Department here in Illinois. And we've had, for what it's worth and for viewers and listeners, we do our best to have a wide array of people who come on our show. And as of lately, it's been quite a few Rockford natives or locals or firefighters themselves. Right. And some of that's because of the department I also came from, which is Rockford, Illinois. Very busy. Definitely there's an emphasis on the amount of, I guess, call it the quote unquote action that the city of Rockford gets for especially the exposure that our firefighters see. And I don't know, just, what got you interested in the fire service? How did you land here?
That's a good question. I grew up as a college athlete here in Rockford, and then, went to school, played basketball there at Western Illinois. And
you're not going to be able to brush over it too quickly like that, because I think you were like a star or like a, right?
I was an average, I was a good role player. Let's just say that. Well, we did, as a team, we did really well. So my experience down there was really, really good as far as, my teammates and what we accomplished. And so I'm very proud of that. also kind of just stayed in basketball. Cause like when you grow up and like sports is your life, you think like, well, maybe it's just my life and that's what I should do. So I stayed on and I coached for like.
Did it help that you were like, I'm 5'10", I'm 5'11"?
Yeah. And well, and that I'm technically short.
I think, how tall are you?
Our center was 6'7". So I'm actually, so the media guide always said I was 5'11", but
yeah.
I mean, maybe with my shoes on, right? So I'm about 5'9.5", 5'10". So they always kind of, flub that number a little bit just to, I guess, scare the opponents. So I'm like, 5'11" is really scary.
I'd be scared.
Yeah.
I'd be like, she's going to kick my ass.
Oh man, that really made the difference, didn't it? So no, it was right up my alley to like get right into coaching. But then, I just found myself not really being fulfilled by that. And my degree was in kinesiology and just loved kind of like the medical side and the science side, and then wanted to get into cardiac rehab. I mean, I just loved that piece. And then just was really unhappy in the coaching, just the lifestyle and just kind of like, 24/7 like workload. And
as opposed to what you do now.
Yeah.
Which is like
24/7. Yeah. It's just like out of the pot and in the frying pan, right? But I didn't feel as fulfilled as I thought I would. And so
that was when you were
I was coaching. Right. And
and you went from so how did you start to coach? You coach basketball.
Yes. So I graduated, and my coach came to me and said, "Hey, we've got a position available, for you to kind of stay on." And so it just was kind of like natural. I played for that team, and then I ended up being a graduate assistant and then an assistant coach, and did that for 4 or 5 years, and finished my grad degree in that time. So that was, benefit.
Yeah.
And so, here I am with a master's in kinesiology and not happy in coaching. And so what do you do?
Dragging hose in the street.
Yeah. It's like, what can I do with this? I
think that's actually kind of fascinating is that I think there's still a perception of like firefighters, EMS, and to your point, like we don't just overlook anybody here. We emphasize the fire service, but I'll reference law enforcement, the telecommunicators, and it is interesting how many have, solid education backgrounds,
sure,
bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. One person was referenced on a previous episode where he came here to Rockford, went through the whole, recruitment, or through the academy, got on company and all that stuff. He ended up going, leaving and going into the military, the Army, the Army, and becoming a physician.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Newberry.
Yeah, I think I remember that name.
Yeah. And I believe now he runs he's up in UW-Madison, I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's kind of interesting how, the fire service has always had that persona of like, knuckle draggers and some smoke eaters.
More blue collar, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I think that would be the consensus is that it's still a blue collar career.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, I didn't know much about the fire service before I started. But there was a guy, his name was Gary Gurney. He was a lieutenant with Rockford. That is one of my dad's best friends. And then George Mitchell, who basically started Rockford Wildcats and the AAU program and kind of took us under his wing. And so George was like a second dad to me, in basketball, and coached me and was influential in where I ended up basketball-wise. And I think
you mentioned Gary Gurney.
Yeah.
You said Gurney? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was kind of like a dad to everybody.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I mean, he was one to really, I think, look out for people.
He was. And I think probably like one of the original peer supporters, back then. I think he, has always kind of just had that vibe that he really cares about people. And he reached out to my dad and said, "Hey, she's got to look into this." And I was like, "What? The fire department?" I don't even know where to start with that. And,
did it make it easier because you were coming back to Rockford for that? Because you're from Rockford.
Right.
Okay.
It did. I was like, well, that's, intriguing to me because it'd be nice to get back to home, closer to home. And I didn't really know where I wanted to land. I actually tested for the fire department in Macomb, Illinois, and met Dan Keenan. I sat right next to Dan Keenan and Greg Donnelly, I think. And then we all tested for Macomb that day, which is so funny because I ended up being in the academy with Dan when I got hired here in Rockford. So
Right.
So yeah, it all
and
just
then all three of them, you and
Right.
and Dan Keenan and Greg Donnelly,
Yep.
all became Rockford firefighters.
Right.
Yeah,
It's kind of a small world.
It is.
Which leads to that fire department family piece, right? And I think for me, the fire department was perfect. It was like science meets physical activity meets, and I just felt like maybe I've been preparing for this my entire life, right? And and just I loved it. I loved the team aspect of it. I loved the physical piece, the medical side, the science side of everything. I loved helping people, right? Like it was just kind of like the perfect package. And so I'm just grateful that somebody said, hey, you need to look at this, that Gary told my dad, you got to look at this because it really made a difference in my life. So, and I don't want to say it's the perfect career for everyone, right? But for me, it was hands down.
Yeah. Same here. It's funny how so many of these roads and conversations actually come back to Rockford, and I'm not from Rockford, but I was up in suburb of Madison in Fitchburg, and ended up meeting at two different times firefighters from Rockford under different situations. One the first time I ever met anybody from the Rockford Fire Department, I met Greg Castronovo.
Okay.
And I was at the National Fire Academy in like 1993.
Wow.
At the NFA, taking a class out there. He was taking a class out there, and we just kind of crossed paths on the campus and got to talking at you've been out there. That's at the command post.
Yeah.
And so obviously, he was a more of a heady veteran guy from Rockford, and and I was just eating it up because I was like, oh, Rockford, yeah, maybe I should do that, and so he influenced for me to test. Well, then shortly thereafter, at the time, the helicopter from OSF, from St. Anthony Medical Center, Lifeline, I think they called her. So Lifeline was doing a helicopter flight or I think they were transporting by air a patient up to Madison, and freak accident.
Sure.
I think the way it went is that their helicopter came down below some cloud cover and clipped one of those high tension wires from a big tower. And I think it hit the back rotor and it just kind of chewed it up. Helicopter did a hard landing in a field in Fitchburg, and then our fire department at that time, I was with Fitchburg, and so we actually responded to that.
Okay.
Ended up having everything worked out great. Thank God.
Sure.
So everyone was good, and the patient was good. And then we ended up having like an appreciation dinner together.
Okay.
Fitchburg hosted the Lifeline crew and all that stuff from St. Anthony's. And Scott Jones was
another connection.
Connection. He was a dispatcher, I think, at the time, and he ended up attending that. And there was another guy, another Rockford firefighter. So
right.
I don't know, just the way that all these, things intersect, and then we end up doing a podcast together.
Yeah. Hello. And I think that's the thing. And I know, I think the way you get the message out on this career is by those stories, right? Those connections, talking to people, identifying people, say, hey, take a look at this, right? This is a huge opportunity and it's a great career. But yeah, it's interesting. I think most people I know, it was, a family member or a parent or an uncle or, somebody a friend, right, that kind of gets them interested, because I would have never in a million years had Gary never said anything to my dad, probably thought about it.
And it's kind of interesting too, because the amount of effort nowadays that goes into recruitment and you're in training right now.
Right.
So you went from, firefighter, paramedic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you became a lieutenant.
Yep.
You currently hold that rank. And now you've taken on the training division.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for how many?
About 3 years.
About 3 years.
It's like a record.
Yeah. That's there is a little bit of a revolving door there, isn't there?
There is. Yeah. But no.
Which is weird because
I
I love training.
Yeah.
I love it's always been a passion of mine.
It's good. No, there has been, we've had some great people in this position, and right now for me, it's working out well, right? So I really like that piece. It's very rewarding. Again, back to the coaching piece and the athletic piece. It's kind of nice to see, that team come together and that group kind of grow together, and, watching them cross the finish line is really rewarding, and, almost a little emotional at times, because it's like, how hard that was, going through the academy, like the difficulty. And so seeing their little successes and I don't know, it's just really, really cool.
It's always a fine line to walk, because on the one hand, you're on one side of that line, and you're trying to tell them this is going to be really hard. And then on the other side of the line, you're saying, but you have everything inside of you to get it done. That and then but it's going to be really hard.
Right. But you can't explain how hard it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so that's what's not funny, but funny, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to tell them, listen, what you're about to do is not for the faint of heart. And they're like, shake your head. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. And then, that SCBA week that comes up, and, we're exposing everyone's fears and teaching them how to manage, air packs in tight spaces. And you see that wide-eyed, what did I do? And
you're yelling make yourself smaller. And they're like, I can't be any smaller.
And so, but just watching the accomplishment and watching people fight through that adversity is, to me, I get goosebumps talking about it, because it's it's so cool to see just, them busting through the wall and saying, you know what, I can do this, and look what I just did. And from then, you almost become invincible after that. You can fight through, and you can accomplish things.
Yeah.
And so that's the really fun piece.
Yeah. I mean, and, again, there's a lot of fire talk here. There's so much of this that can apply to any walk of life, any business or any company, anybody that's trying to build a team. First of all, how hard that is.
Right.
Let's get everybody in a room, that has, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different understandings and misunderstandings, and then try to get everybody on the same page and function like a team.
Right.
Holy cow. And when you're in charge of it, you're just I'm scratching my eyeballs.
Right. I mean, sometimes you're just like, what in the, but.
Is that when you take that big sigh?
That's when I'm like, okay, yeah, it's going to be a long day. It usually comes around 2:00 in the afternoon.
The big sigh?
Yeah. When my bucket's full and it's like, oh, I need to
the big 2:00
relieve
sigh.
some of this pressure, the weight. It's fun to watch. And I think that, we talk about fire department family, and the first people you meet and become part of that family are the people you train with to get on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And those brothers and sisters are lifelong friends. And I feel that way about my academy class. I'm sure you have friends from your academy. You know what I mean? The group that, and you're still, you're still tight, still hang out.
We still do this if I get around a certain couple of guys, we still do this stupid game where you remember, the game where you put your, they put the.
Oh yeah, and then you're not supposed to look.
That's to look, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we started doing that in the academy.
Okay.
In '96.
Man.
And every once in a great while, and now we've gotten in cover every now and then. I'll send to Jeff. I'll send a meme, a sticker by text of that. Oh. Of that symbol.
Got him.
I got you, and I'm going to punch you in your arm because I know you looked at it.
Right.
I know you looked at it, so I'm going to punch you.
That's funny. I mean, those inside jokes, those things you guys went through. I mean, now you guys are all retiring together, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. We're about halfway. So
it flew by.
It feels like it.
Yeah. What year are you in now?
15.
So 15 years you have gone through some of the, officership testing cycles. You've gotten into training. And then you also are pretty deep into another segment of the fire service accreditation, right?
Right. I've been blessed with the accreditation manager.
Blessed.
Piece. Yeah, it's real.
You've been blessed.
Did you sense my sarcasm? Yeah, you had to sense my sarcasm there. Yeah, I've been blessed with that responsibility. And honestly, I've been a part of that process for 10 years. And when now Chief Panko was the accreditation manager, it was kind of like a natural progression. So, it made sense. And, but yeah, we always say blessed because it comes with a lot of work.
Yeah, honestly, including you, we're referring to two people that I personally know that I don't think you guys could not dot your I's and cross T's. Right. I think you dream of doing that. Yeah. It becomes a real skill. Yeah. No, and again, it's the attention to detail and actually in that whole process, it's the details that matter.
Right. Right.
So,
it's going through with a fine-tooth comb and identifying room for improvement, right? Yeah. And, that's kind of my jam. I love project management, and I love, snooze alert. I'm really I want to hang out with her.
We're going to really have to pick this one up.
Her hobbies are project management and document review.
Yeah.
She's a real fun time. Yeah. But it's been kind of like my skill set, and so someone's got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's really beating down the door to take that from me, so we're gonna keep rolling with it. But no, it's taught me a lot. You talk about professional development. I just work with the Great Lakes Fire Consortium, and it's all accredited agencies and credentialed officers, and we just talked about how it truly shows you how to understand your organization, your community. So the professional development piece of that has been great in my own skill set and trying to develop myself. So, if you're trying to win me friends on this podcast, I don't know if it's working.
Well, you got one friend here.
Okay, perfect.
So you're good.
All right, that makes two. All right.
That makes two. Well, no, so all jokes aside,
sure.
I know what I think you're indicating or alluding to, and if those, again, listening and viewing, is that I have seen the same eye rolls that you've seen when you bring up accreditation and the project management and all these, different, markers that we create. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to, keep in mind, is that we set the standard. We create the, these are important and this is, and that's probably the most frustrating thing, is that goes back to getting everybody in a room and going, okay, well, what's important to you doesn't maybe rise to the same importance of somebody else.
Right.
And firefighters are great, but they're also really good about poo-pooing each other's, like, oh, that's a really dumb idea.
We're the first ones to, jack around with each other, you don't want to tell anyone, like if someone listens to this, it'll be nerd alert when I get back.
What do you mean
if? Sorry. Whoops. I meant when.
Tens of people. Tons of people.
Oh, yeah. We meant tons of people.
But see, now even that, don't do anything half-ass.
Right.
That's what that's my, my position.
Right.
You associate yourself with people who are like that.
Right.
It's one of the reasons I wanted you on the show, was I know who there are people out there that I can, very much relate to. And I want to hear from everybody.
Right.
But I don't want anyone to half-ass it.
Right.
I will literally steer clear of, the half-assers.
Yeah, we don't need. We don't need any of that.
No.
I think something that I know Chief Panko always says was be deliverable. Right. We talk about this in the academy, is don't strive to be a success. Right.
Yeah.
Strive to be significant. Strive to make a difference. And we talk about extreme ownership, and I think that's where, sometimes in the fire service, you find something and you own it, right? Like you're good at it, you own it, and you don't half-ass it. You definitely take it through to the finish line.
Yeah. And do it in a lot of cases, you end up doing it with a lot of ridicule.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bleacher creatures that are just sitting out there, just, that's stupid or it's silly or, it's not rising again to the level of what they think is important. And I'll go over there and I'll want to hear what they have to say. A lot of times, I think over the years, I've been able to sort of quickly be able to categorize, what I think I'm going to hear. Right. And maybe that's bad, because it's a preconceived notion of what's going to be said. But clearly, we know that the call volume is crazy. Not enough, support, personnel, manpower, as we called it. And, again, there's a lot of things that you're scratching the surface.
Right.
Extremely important. But then it's like, well, but the only way to rectify any of these problems or even start to identify what the problem is if we do a deep dive on it.
Right.
And who's going to do that?
Yeah. I mean, and listen, there's things that have to be done that aren't glamorous, right? And, there's a lot of work behind it. And sometimes it, pays off and sometimes it doesn't seem like it does, but the effort is to move the goal line. And even if it's a centimeter, you're moving the goal line.
There's that sports talk.
When you look at,
when I like to interject things, I like to get, there's right. That sports talk.
Yeah, that you got to get your jazzy voice on.
The jazzy voice.
So, just looking at, like you were just saying, like the people, the spectators, right? I encourage everybody to get involved. Like you think about it, if we had everybody getting involved and taking extreme ownership, I mean, what would that look like? We have that and there's a role for everybody in the department, right? Whether your role is nerdy project management and document review, or whether your role is to be the best at ropes or the best at extrication or the best at EMS, right? We all have a role to play. I think everybody needs to look at their strength and just pursue it, right? Like I would never want to fit somebody into my mold, right?
Right.
But we have got such a talented group of personnel, and you're right. I mean, we're running calls that we've never seen before. I mean, we're running the volume of calls we've never seen before, and that, typically does seem to rise. And you talk about mental health, right? And we've got that
That's
load,
where we're gonna go, yeah.
Right? That weight on our people who are showing up every day and they're running the volume of calls and they're, feeling that weight and that workload, right? And it's not. I mean, you've been to other conferences, other classes, talked to other people, and the problem we have in Rockford is not extremely unique. It's a problem in the fire service that call volume is going up. We need, I would say, more people in the street, to help manage the emotional weight, right, that people carry, and it's kind of funny. I mean, I was thinking about this coming in here today that, the luggage people carry throughout their career, right? It's enormous. And I think that, you pick up a little bit here and you pick up a little bit more here. Now you got another bag and you're holding that, and the weight starts to slow you down. And
you're talking, you're referring to the backpack,
right?
Where the bricks get, and and some of those. So is that that's where you're going? Is that you're talking about that backpack, that first responders, and again, we're also on this particular episode. We're talking about the telecommunicators too, because they are taking that first call, and so taking whether it's taking the 911 call or responding to it. What we're referring to is the fact that every single one of those calls is either the size of a pebble, small little rock, or it's a big heavy stone, because obviously there are calls out there, incidents that are
more intense,
like Plymouth Rock. I mean, it's huge, and so that backpack gets pretty heavy over a career of say 20, 25, even 30 years,
right?
And if you haven't unpacked it, even once, right? That backpack is freaking heavy.
Yeah, it is, it's kind of like that, like we talk about the bucket is full, right? You're gonna have to pour some out to create more space,
Right.
But yeah, so I think, with what we have in Rockford, I mean, number one, and I know you would agree to this, we have some of the best personnel.
Sure. Absolutely.
Great at what we do and serving this community. And, we've got a ton of support for the peer support side and the mental health side, which I've been a part of for, 8-9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's still more to do and there's still more to talk about, which is, I know, part of the reason why we're here.
Were you one of the original?
Yes.
To start out? Yeah,
this started out, and it started out with an organization called Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, and that kind of just introduced the concept in Illinois. And the idea was that, who better to talk about things that you're dealing with in the fire service, or the compassion fatigue, or the stress and the trauma than, right here like we're doing at the kitchen table, or, over a cup of coffee, whatever it is. And yes, peers who understand. You could go to a counselor and maybe they've never experienced what you've experienced. I mean, you could talk about the calls you've been on, right? But until they've been in your shoes.
And then you get that dreaded question that's like, and how does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel? I don't know.
And that's not, that's not to downplay the counseling part of it. It's just, honestly, and I'm going to be the first one, like, on this, in this conversation, to let you and anyone listening or viewing to know, I've gone through counseling, not just once. I've gone through it several times.
Sure.
For very good reasons, for personal reasons, and this is what you get. Like all that counseling and
all fixed.
all fixed. But honestly, the dreaded question is, and how does that make you feel?
Right.
I mean, honestly, you could ask me anything else other than that, and I would be like,
that's why I'm here.
I don't know.
That's why I'm here. I don't know how it makes me feel. I had no idea what to expect. Zero perspective when I got on the fire service. And so then you're in it, and I'm like, whoa, what was that? You go on a call that's like wild, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm here to fix, I'm dealing with it. Okay. And then, but then like the 10th time you have that call, it's no big deal. Right.
Yeah, I think there's a perception that counseling, as you go, if you were to go to it, if you were to go through, say 6 weeks of counseling, that there's this perception that you're supposed to come out on the other side a different person,
right?
Like changed, or like you said,
all
healed,
better,
or all better, or however you want to put that. You're still the same person,
right?
However you approach the counseling aspect of it,
right?
It's not changing you as who you are. It may enlighten you to certain degrees, but you're still going to be you.
Right. And it is helpful to, I've been to counseling as well. And it gives you the tools you need to recognize, and it helps you kind of, like you said, get rid of some of that weight. I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it. We have individuals and you carry the load at work, and then maybe you go home and there's a load, right? And maybe in your personal life outside of work, there's a load. And so now we've got like the perfect storm. And so we try, when we talk about peer support and we talk about taking care of each other, because that's what it is, right? We're just checking in on each other, say, hey, are you good? Like, I noticed like you've been really struggling, or you've been really upset lately, or you've been more angry than normal. You're not cracking as many jokes as you normally do. And so checking in on each other to say, hey, you need to talk to someone, we can talk. Or, I can help you find a resource, because you've got to vent that pressure. You've got to vent that pressure, because when you don't vent it and it explodes in a bad way that's harmful to you and the people you might care about. And, we want people to retire. This is a hard job. It's a hard job. And you want to retire healthy. You and I have had that conversation. It's not just the people who are active. We want our active people to have the best career they can have, the healthiest career that they can have, so they retire healthy. But we need to also take care of the people who've retired, because they're still part of the fire department family. They still have, I've talked to retired people who still dream about calls that went on, right? Who still kind of carry that emotional trauma or that load.
I had somebody recently tell me that they had been retired for like 5 years, and then they started like, euphorically smelling certain smells in the middle of the night out of nowhere. Like it, and I was just like, oof, like why? First
Why
of all,
that?
there's certain things I don't want to have to revisit.
Right. I don't want to remember some stuff, right?
Yeah,
Which
but
is look at that coping mechanism. I don't want to remember any of it. Yeah.
I guess we're going to put bourbon in our coffee.
Well,
now.
I mean, I guess I should go right to counseling.
After this.
Traumatic event. I just, I think that.
You walk out of here and like, I didn't realize this was going to bring all that out.
I know. I might need some peer support after this. No.
This episode of the Original Firefighter Podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today.
I think the message we have is we've got to take care of each other, right? And not just... Well,
yeah, and that's going to... Let me just bring this up. So ahead of this, I was doing a little bit of research. And I came across an article in Firehouse Magazine. Mm-hmm. It was a study that was done in 2022. The article was written by a gentleman named Matt Kofi. He's with the Portland, Oregon Fire Department. I think he's like an 18-year veteran out there.
Okay.
The article references a study that was done. They surveyed 253 firefighters.
Okay.
Okay. And, again, I have the article here. I read through it, and no joke, I was pretty shocked.
Okay.
So get this. So of the 253 firefighters that were surveyed, 27% were deemed high risk for suicide.
Wow.
High risk.
And that's scary.
So that's, okay, 33% of that number had contemplated. Mm-hmm. Had contemplated. And so, I don't know. That to me is like...
That's a lot. I think firefighter suicide has been, in the past, it had outnumbered line of duty deaths, right?
Yeah, that started, I think they started identifying that in the late 20-teens, like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there.
Right.
And there's a little bit of there's a little disclaimer to put there is that I don't think that we're sure of how many there have been in the past because they haven't always been reported. They haven't always been seen as some sort of a linkage between, personal life to the job. And now, to your point, go ahead.
Well, and you were still on the job when Dan DeGrease out of Chicago came and talked to our entire department about cortisol levels and stress levels and, just what they dealt with in Chicago with their line of duty deaths versus their suicide rate. And Dan DeGrease, who's still in the area, was very influential in the fluorine program at Rosecrans and was the director for a long time. He's no longer the director now, but basically this movement to start training departments about mental health and awareness, because outside of just being physically capable of doing the job, maintaining that, that strong mental state, that social network that makes you the best person you can be, that allows you to grow emotionally and be able to sustain a career like this is huge. And so, that's kind of the idea of where peer support came from is like, hey, we got to check in on each other. You don't know what your brother or sister's going through. And so the idea of peer support is not that any one of us is like a counselor, right? I think that's one of the big misconceptions is like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be like, well, let's talk about it. And I think that, I guess that's my counselor voice.
Good enough.
Right. You're good enough.
You're smart enough. And gosh darn it.
And I've got all the answers, right? No, that is not the case.
No,
and the case is, hey, what's going on? And if you just want to talk about it, let's just kick it around. And if you need a resource, then we need to be the professionals about, the the experts in the room on what resources are available.
And again, I'm referring to some of my own personal accounts, is that I think half the time the hardest part is walking through the door. Mm-hmm. Going to a professional setting, a counseling center,
right.
or an office type situation where firefighters are not comfortable in that environment. They're not.
No.
I'm just going to flat out say it. We do not want to sit in an office,
Right. I mean,
we just don't want to be a part of that. Like,
right.
we want to be out and about, moving around, and I guess, a lot of that type A, that is in a lot of firefighters, that kicks in and goes, I don't need this.
Right.
I don't want this. I don't want that sterile environment.
Yeah. And sometimes we wait just a little bit too long. Right. And I think, if we could get the message out there, like, hey, it's not bad just to get involved and like maybe do like a check-in here and there. And you might not feel you have any type of issue, but man, if you wait till it's not, I don't want to say too late, but if you wait till it's really starting to affect your life, right? What we try to notice is like, is it affecting your daily behavior? Is it affecting your relationships? Those are the things we need to say. All right, those are alarming, right? The alarm's going off here. I need to, I know Chief Barry talks about, and I know he did it in one of our peer support videos at the Red Line was, I might need a second alarm here. You need to recognize when you need to upgrade the resources you need to handle the situation. And it was so fitting because that resonates with everyone, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna do what I normally need to do to mitigate the situation, but sometimes I need a second alarm because I can't. I'm out of options.
Yeah. And again, that everybody's handling everything, things differently. Mm-hmm. I can't just make assumptions of, all firefighters do this one thing to cope.
Right.
I can look at things from what I know that I've participated in and what others have, participated in, which is, we know about going to the bars and having, having beers and cocktails together, and,
right.
and that's a way to unload. Mm-hmm. Get it out, get whatever is inside of you, get it out there. A bit of that, kind of becomes sort of a, slap of the back, let's have another shot contest.
Right.
And again, I'm all for having,
fun.
the fun
right.
and cocktails,
right.
and you're a wine drinker. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I figured that.
Oh, I said that a little too fast.
You did. You went.
I got a little too excited about that.
You're like,
sorry. I just got back from Napa, so I'm all into it right now. So anyway.
Well, okay. So even that, I mean, but vacationing, right? Going on a vacation, or
I think your social, what you have outside of the fire department, you talk about original firefighter and, what firefighters do off duty, right? It is so important to their mental health. It's so important to come home, reboot, re-energize, unload the bag, come back in and tackle it, right?
It's exactly where the whole premise of the brand and the company and everything that we are trying, that we're doing here is to emphasize what are you doing on your off days.
Right.
And obviously in the context of it is, what are you doing it in a healthy way?
Yeah.
Do you even have the means to do that in a healthy way? My reference to going to the bar, it's not a bad reference. It's not meant to be. It's,
sure.
I go to the bar and hang out with my friends, and I meet people, down in Byron or wherever. But if it's only that, if it's always that, if there's nothing else, and I'm hoping for everyone to find that thing. Right. That they step away from the fire department, they step away from the fire service, maybe even step away from your firefighter group, your your friends, and just go find some new people,
right?
And hang out with and see the other side.
Yeah, and I think and it is funny because even my wife will say when we get together with a group of firefighters and maybe their wives or significant others, we talk about the fire department.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's all you're allowed to talk about.
And that's all you're allowed to talk about. And now sometimes it'll be like, just 5 minutes. I just want to talk 5 minutes real quick. We got to tell this one story and remember that. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, when you are off duty, be off duty.
Truly.
And I think be truly off duty and allow yourself to reboot and re-energize when you're and whether that's just, a hobby or working out or whatever, or you go hang out with friends, or you seek counseling, or you just, whatever it might be, find what works for you. And that, I think, is the key, I think, to being able to sustain this career.
And do it comfortably. Mm-hmm. Don't start tomorrow and go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start reading books.
Yeah, well.
and yet for the last 10 years, you've never read a single book.
Right.
Like, don't go all in on this thing and then go, okay, I'm just going to change, no, I think it's small moves on the volume dial, and because quite frankly, I don't think I've ever met a firefighter or a police officer or telecommunicator, anybody in public service who's in the emergency response community. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's not going at volume 10.
Right.
If you're always at volume 10, right? I mean, first of all,
it's not sustainable.
No, it's not, and it's damaging. Just you can see it on people's faces.
Right.
You can see it in the way that they hold their shoulders,
and that's when we need to say, "Hey, you okay?" I mean that's the idea, right?
Going back to this survey that I had brought up, I just wanted to point something out that we talked about. The I referred to them as the bleacher creatures, and the naysayers, if you will, that are like, this program is dumb, or I'm just flat out. I've heard people say, peer support,
right?
Whatever. Okay,
all right.
However, of the survey, and I thought maybe you would think this would be interesting, the marker that came up the most that indicated, like, hey, this is the reoccurring thing being said about, why they feel this way, why there's contemplation, and why there is a high degree of risk and whatnot. I would have thought, because I speak about it very clearly to people, and I said it for so many years on the Rockford Fire Department, was that, how is it that every single year we have all these programs, we have all these pieces that are supposed to be tackling the call volume problem, and yet every single year, which way does the call volume go? It goes up.
Yeah.
By 3%. It's like stamp
clockwork.
It's going to be clockwork, 3%, 3%, 3%.
Right.
And I would have thought that it was the call volume, the workload, that was the number one, marker that was seen as showing these issues. The highest marker actually was, quote unquote, thwarted belongingness.
Interesting. That was a survey answer?
A lack of understanding value. The lack of the feeling that I'm not valued.
That is
was the number. That was the highest marker.
Do you think that's valued like?
That was twice as much as trauma exposure.
Wow. What's interesting, and I could see that, because you enter the fire service and you're like, okay, I'm performing a duty to serve, right? And we're like, yes, I'm going to serve my community. And I've heard people talk about compassion fatigue before, and then you add on a little bit of not feeling valued either by the world, or it just doesn't seem like you're moving the needle, and it's just kind of like I'm kind of going through the motions, right? Nobody wants to go through the motions, right? You become numb. You become a little bit numb, yeah.
Yeah. I took it as, again, and this is, really kind of interesting because it can be taken in a lot of different thoughts and
right.
You're trying to read into, well, what does that mean? I lack value, or I perceive myself to lack value. Well, I would honestly say that, that would be probably something that would make me contemplate the worst of the worst if I truly felt unvalued and unwanted or unneeded. Right. And I just felt that all the time.
Yeah.
I assume that probably comes from within, a feeling within the department that I'm not valued. I would say that it's probably out in the street and the public. Hey, you called me, and then I get there and you treat me like shit.
Sure.
So now I'm, the value of what I do, and to your point, the compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
And just feeling at the end of the day like I don't feel valued.
Yeah. I mean, there have been days that, I've probably felt like, man, I'm not really making a difference. Or, what just happened, and nobody knows like what you do all day long. And you come home and nobody knows that you just did XYZ, or, you got that code back, and you get that code back and you get pulses and you take them to the hospital, and then you kind of just go back out on, you know what I mean? There's no,
or you do
and we just do it again and again and again and again and again. And so, man, that's sad to hear, because that is something that, I wish we could fix.
Yeah.
Right. And
if we could fix it, then we would just do that.
Right.
I think, again, the purpose of even just today, just having this moment together is, one, we want to acknowledge that it's real.
Right.
There's a problem. It's not an easy one. It permeates through a ton of other places in society. It's not just the fire service. It's not just, that, hey, this is a tough job and it's hard to see the things that we see, and I carry it around with me and that kind of thing. I mean, there could be firefighters that are watching and listening and going, yeah, I do that too. And look at our military and look at, homelessness and things that cause that. I have no purpose, or I have no value.
Right.
So this is a, huge, huge problem.
Right.
Throughout, I think throughout our society is what we're actually dealing with. I think what's going to be interesting is that what we have the next generation of firefighters.
Okay.
Who are coming in. You're starting a new academy here coming just in a few days. So you're seeing you're seeing this newest generation of firefighters. Right. There are a ton of markers out there that say we have an entire society of people who don't feel connected. And now your job is going to have to be to figure out how to connect them. So good luck with that.
Oh, thank you. It's also a favorite part. We've talked about this, and I know this has been conversation, around the kitchen table and stations and just in circles I've been in. Just the social media, I'm on my phone. We don't connect. We don't talk to each other.
That's exactly right.
The thwarted value, and I'm going to misspeak on what it was, but, not feeling valued. This is exactly why we have to check in on each other. You know what I mean? We have to say, hey, how are you doing today? We have to be there for each other. We're there we go on calls. We don't even know people, right? We need to come back to the station. We need to take care of each other. There's critical incidents that are happening in your station, in your firehouse, in your department. And we need to respond to those, and we need to, do what we can to help those individuals, because, we're not going to be able to fix everything.
Right.
Right. I think we've kind of gotten away from that. So to kind of bring that full circle here, we talk about the disconnect, the lack of social interaction, whatever, has also caused some of that problem. So we're trying to bring that social connection back.
Yeah. And that's why we want to talk about the red line social.
Right.
The word social is right in there.
Social. Yeah, we want to be social.
And again, that's not attempting to fix it all.
Right.
It's attempting to bring us together. Again, awareness, conversation, a support group.
Right.
Inclusion, making people feel like, you belong here.
And you're valued.
So the red line social.
Yes.
Go. Red line social.
Yeah. Peer Sport on Rockford Fire has had a peer sport team for a while. And, we've thrown some things at the wall. Nothing, we just want to get people involved. And the idea came up, the kitchen table conversation, right? We don't have many events for fire departments and their spouses or significant others. We have union events, right, where the firefighters will get together and we'll do what? We'll talk about work. But the social aspect, like we've already hit on, the spouses, how do we support people's families also? Because you're coming home from a bad shift, and who takes the heat, right? I might unload on my wife, you know what I mean? And then she's like, what's your problem? And I'll be like, I don't know. So they're also absorbing some of this that's coming off of us, right? So how do we support families too? Because we know that if you have a bad day at work and you go home and you have a bad time at home, that's compounding.
Sure.
And so we need to support both sides of it. And so, and you know what? Our spouses, significant others, people in our families, they're going through it too. And so they need resources and stuff to help them cope and stuff to say, hey, I don't know what to do here, but so-and-so's not the same.
Yeah. If you're going from home,
right.
Okay. And you've left home and the last couple days that you've been off work where you're maybe fighting with your significant other.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is you don't really know why you're fighting, but it's just happening. And then you go to work. And so there's that tension that you leave and it's at the house, and then you go to work and then you're upset because you're at work and, the calls are, the tones are going off and you're going out the door 9, 10, 12, 15 times. And now you're pissed.
Yeah.
And then you come back home.
And now you're really pissed.
I'm just gonna
tired.
I'm just gonna go on the record on this episode and say there's your cycle.
Yeah.
If you can see that, if you're able to see that cycle, that's what's happening, where you're going home, not enjoying much of anything at home, then you go to work and you're not enjoying anything at work, you're in a cycle.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And it's happening. And that's the purpose of the red line was like, hey, let's put the phones down and let's hang out and let's check in on each other. And it's specific to firefighters.
Unless we do selfies.
Yeah. Post those all over.
Yeah. Then the phone's fine.
Yeah. We want to just a night to get together. We don't see each other often. You might be at a station. I haven't, there's people I don't see all the time. We're a larger department, right? So, just a night to get together, to have dinner, to promote, peer support, promote checking in on each other, to invite spouses, significant others to say, hey, there are resources available for them as well.
And to look good.
And we want to get
it's a pretty
jazzy.
swanky.
Yeah,
it's a swanky deal.
Yeah.
It's a swanky social.
Who doesn't like to get in some cocktail attire and have a good time. So this will be our third year, and we've been very fortunate. We've had some people kind of hear about this, and I know Mission Barbecue has been a huge advocate for firefighter peer support, and also for like the Jamie Cox Foundation, and they support a lot of first responders, which has been huge. But they saw the first video that we did, and they were like, "This is a big deal." Taking care of each other and checking in, and so we're going to keep it going, because at the end of the day, if it's just once a year, we all get together and we say, "Hey, we're here, we're in it." This is, we talk about the camaraderie you have in the academy. It's still there. We've lost some of it. We lose it as we go throughout our career a little bit. We lose it because we spend too much time, on our phones and social media. It's just one night a year we come together and say, hey, this sometimes sucks, right? And this job can be a load, but you know what? We're in it together. It's the fourth day of FAST class. Let's pull it together. Let's, hang in. I got your back. You got mine. Don't check out. And if you need help, we're going to get you through it. I mean, it's the same thing as going through the training academy, right? Where you stick together, you take care of each other, you have each other's back. At the end of the day, you get through it. And it's because of the people who are on your left and your right. It's because of the peers that strengthen you. I can't say enough about how important that relationship piece is between each other. And, I've got my group of people, they're my go-to, right? But even when you see somebody, you're just like, hey, how's it been? How are things going? How do you like it at station? Whatever. So that's the purpose of
but
the
also
red
don't
line.
Talk about the job
all
night long.
But also, the red line.
Right?
The red line is not an event to just talk about work all night long.
Because what do you do? Just real quick, what do you do on your when you're down, when you're on off time, when you go down to from 10 to 2
to a 2?
Yeah.
Oh man,
what are you doing?
I love golf. I don't get to do it as much as I want, since I took the 40-hour gig. But I absolutely love golf. And outside of that, Kelly and I we love to go out to dinner. We love to hang out with friends. I mean, take the dogs for a walk.
Kelly's a good time.
She's
fun.
Man. Yeah. You talk about somebody who's grounding, right? I mean, she's been, my support, and, I'm very fortunate that, that piece, that portion we talk about coming home is super supportive and super beneficial to me. Right. So I'm very lucky that way. And, kudos to her for putting up with me for all these years. So.
No, and I've because I've seen you guys together. I saw you at the Red Line Social last year.
Yeah.
I could totally tell that you guys were just such a good network, good little crew together. And hats off to the Red Line Social. I want to, so I just want to give you a quick moment to say that the Red Line Social is this year, October
26th, Saturday,
26th.
October 26th. It's going to be at Francesco's. We're inviting all active members, their spouses, significant others, but we also expanded and we're inviting all of our retired members this year because, again, we started out small just to see, like, can we get this done? And we know we want to help support our retirees better. And so we're working on that. We're actively working on that. So, Saturday, October 26th, we're going to have, another video produced by, Woven Films, just to kind of highlight, a couple stories that are going on in the department, so I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a couple raffles just for everybody out there. The chief is raffling a day off. Yeah. Oh, see, your ears perked up and you don't even work here anymore. You're like, wait a minute. You know how that gets everybody rolling, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, a day off. She's gonna raffle that off, and then I know Keith McNeff is donating one of his. Have you seen his hose flags?
Yeah,
So he's donating one of those, and so we'll be raffling that off, and there'll be a DJ and fun, and so that'll be that. So
I'm proud to let you know on this episode that Original Firefighter is in this for mental health and wellness. Not just in brand, not just in podcast, but we want to put our dollars and cents behind it too, and we want to walk the walk. So we're pledging $250 to the Red Line Social this year.
Awesome.
And future support as well. When people go and buy any of our merchandise, we give 5% of every purchase back to mental health and wellness programs, not only locally, but to the IAFF mental health and wellness programs.
Awesome.
And that's just something that we want to, make sure everyone listening and viewing knows is that you do have outlets. If you're struggling, if you're finding yourself in that cycle, don't check out.
Right.
First of all, turn to your peers. Go find that person that that you can confide in, but then also, start to figure out a path to some professional help.
Right.
And that I believe can come from, if you have a peer support network, great. Your union typically is an outsource as well.
Right.
Your fire department should have something. And then also be aware that at the, local, state and federal level, the IAFF alone, has programs for those in need. And again, you may not see it. Other people around you might see it before you do.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that, that you've got the support here at Original Firefighter.
I know you had mentioned that to me briefly, and I can't tell you how much that means that you guys would want to give back and invest in that. Money makes the world go round, unfortunately, and so being able to provide resources, and make, provide training to our peer supporters and training to our staff, right? Like our administration, and just really kind of keep that awareness at the forefront is huge. So we greatly appreciate that. And I'll speak on behalf of the peer support team. Like we really appreciate it.
No, we look forward to it. We look forward to building a relationship and, just actively being engaged. And then again, that's the whole message, is just to stay engaged.
Right.
And don't check out. I've really appreciated our time here together. I can't tell you enough of how much it meant. I hope to have you back.
Sure.
It'd be awesome if we had maybe yourself and another person maybe from peer support.
Yeah. Or if you want to talk about project management, you just
I don't think we hit accreditation enough on this episode. If you've tuned out, you've lost out.
No, this has been fun.
No, I've had a great time. I'm so glad to have had you on the show. And we appreciate you listening and tuning in. Please like and follow us on our YouTube channel, Original Firefighter. Check us out at originalfirefighter.com for merchandise. And just remember that we do give back to support the firefighting community. We want to make sure that we're taking care of you. Remember that we are here for your off days. Take care. Be safe.